Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, what if the best way to fight a disease wasn't with a single silver bullet, but with a constantly changing battle plan? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating concept, a strategic diet rotation for cancer, as detailed by Dr. Eric Berg. The whole idea is to outsmart one of our most adaptive opponents.
You know, Dr. Berg's entire strategy really boils down to this one powerful idea, that what you eat isn't just passive fuel. Nope, it can be an active weapon in a high-stakes biological chess match.
All right, and before we get into the nuts and bolts, this is super important. We have to be really clear here. What we're talking about today is an explanation of a proposed strategy, purely for informational purposes. You should always work directly with your doctor or oncologist before making any changes to your health plan. Seriously.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this strategy, we first have to understand the opponent. What is it, according to the source material, that makes cancer so incredibly difficult to fight? Well, the first key concept is this word heterogeneous. And all that means is that cancer isn't one single uniform enemy. A single tumor can actually be a whole collection of different cell types, each with its own personality, its own playbook, and its own potential weaknesses. And this adaptability, it's its greatest weapon. I mean, it's like a chameleon. It can switch up what it eats for fuel, it can hide from your immune system, and, this is a big one, it learns from attacks. Think of it just like antibiotic resistance. The cells that survive a treatment don't just, get lucky. They can come out the other side stronger, more resilient, and they pass that advantage on.
So that brings up a huge question, right? It's really the basis for this entire strategy. How in the world do you fight something that can constantly change its tactics just to survive? A single, static approach, well, it just might not be enough.
And the proposed answer is to pivot to a fuel starvation strategy. The idea is, if you can't kill the enemy with one weapon, you starve its supply lines. So the core concept here is to systematically cut off the different fuels that it needs to survive, to grow, and especially to adapt. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. This chart basically maps different fuel types to different cancers. According to the source, a lot of cancers love glucose, sugar, but others might prefer glutamine or fats, or even very specific amino acids. And this mapping, this is the whole foundation for figuring out which diets to use in the strategy. But here's the catch, and this is probably the most important point of all. If you only cut off one fuel source, let's say you go all in on cutting out glucose, you might wipe out one population of cancer cells. But then what happens? Well, the other cells, the ones that can use a different fuel, they don't just survive, they can take over and thrive. The enemy adapts.
And that is exactly where the diet rotation tactic comes into play. The whole idea is to never, ever let the cancer get comfortable. By constantly switching up the diets, you create this unpredictable nutritional environment. You're making sure that no single type of cancer cell has a steady fuel supply long enough to really adapt and take hold. And this slide just illustrates the tactic perfectly. So let's take prostate cancer, which the source notes can use fats or lipids as a fuel source. For a couple of days, you might use an anti-glucose diet to hit one group of cells. Then, just when the cancer might be starting to figure things out, you switch to an anti-lipid diet to target a completely different group. Then you cycle back. It's this constant strategic pivot designed to stay one step ahead.
And critically, this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Not at all. The specific diet rotation, which diets you use and for how long, is meant to be tailored to the cancer's known fuel preferences. As you can see here, a plan for melanoma looks completely different from the plan for prostate cancer. But listen, the diet rotation is only one piece of the puzzle. The strategy supports this main tactic with several other tools, basically creating a multi-front attack that's designed to weaken the cancer from every possible angle. Okay, first up, fasting. This is presented as a really powerful parallel strategy. The idea is to use both intermittent fasting, eating in a smaller window, and also throwing in periodic longer fasts to just broadly restrict all fuel. This not only helps starve the cancer cells, but it's also meant to trigger a process called autophagy, which is basically the body's natural cleanup crew, getting rid of damaged cells to make way for newer, healthier ones. And here's that theme again, unpredictability. The source recommends doing these longer fasts on an irregular schedule, maybe a 48-hour fast one week and then a 72-hour fast a couple of weeks later. This irregularity is designed to keep the cancer totally off balance, unable to adapt to some predictable famine cycle.
Next in the toolkit is vitamin D. It plays a huge role in immune function. Now, according to the source, some cancer cells can essentially hide from the immune system by blocking the body's vitamin D receptors. The proposed counterattack? Maintain blood levels at a much higher range, around 90 to 100 nanograms per milliliter, to basically overwhelm that defense mechanism and let the immune system get back in the fight.
And finally, 2 more tools to round out the kit. First is exercise. The goal here is to flood the body with oxygen, an environment that many cancer cells really struggle in. And second, very specific targeted supplements chosen to act as roadblocks for the metabolic pathways that cancer uses to process fuels like glucose and glutamine.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's not about finding one magic bullet. It's about a comprehensive battle plan. The core concept is basically fighting fire with fire, using a flexible, adaptive, multi-pronged strategy to combat a disease that is itself defined by its flexibility and its adaptability. And this kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Regardless of this specific protocol, the underlying principle here is really powerful. If our most challenging diseases are characterized by their ability to change and adapt, then maybe the most effective way to fight them isn't with static weapons, but with strategies that are just as dynamic and just as intelligent.